When you're out and about, do you hear music drifting your way? From the store's Muzak to your personal playlist, music is different for everyone. For me, and for you. Music reminds us of memories and feelings from our past. Sometimes it reminds us of who we were and who we are today. And sometimes it reminds us of who we're meant to be. I'm a writer, and these are my music memories. St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion by John Parr. This song was big when I was a young man. It was released in conjunction with a movie of the same name. Now, I had not seen the movie when it was released, so I never had any memory of the movie. But the song was very big on the radio in 1984. You see, back then, when you released a movie, you had to be sure to have a hit song on the soundtrack. That was very important. The song would get a lot of radio play, and as a result, more and more people would become aware of the movie. Other movies that fell into this idea were movies like Flashdance, with the multiple hits, Flashdance, What a Feeling, and Maniac, Footloose, with that amazing Kenny Loggins song, and Short Circuit, with the extremely catchy Who's Johnny by El DeBarge. But this song really tugs at my heart. It's catchy and almost overplayed, but there was something that kept it in my musical memory. The song to me is a very inspirational song. I know that sounds corny, but well, it's true. Back when this song was released, my life was a hot mess. I was a hyperactive child in a time when people didn't know how to deal with that issue. My parents were very confused by this. In the 80s, people would just often attribute the acting out to kids being kids, except when it wasn't, or when they felt that I had gone too far. And that seemed to happen a lot. Now, I never really got poor grades based on my academic knowledge. It was always my behavior. I was bored. I remember teachers calling my mom because I kept sliding out of my desk. The other kids thought it was funny and would constantly tease me about it. And then I'd get into trouble for making my mom leave work, and the teachers would be annoyed at my disruption. Nothing seemed to keep me or my brain calm. My parents, like many other parents back then, were told that medication was the answer. Doctors were prescribing drugs as quickly as they could. And I suppose in some cases, it must have worked. Just not in my case. I was first given Ritalin. That was the miracle drug for ADD back then. I struggled while on this medication. Everything just seemed to get faster for me. And the adults just didn't seem to understand the problem. I mean, my stepmom decided not to allow me to take the drug, insisting she didn't want drugs in her home, especially for a made-up thing. Instead, she attempted to control my impulses with a wooden spoon. That only made things worse, as I found myself getting more and more angry. But that's the way things were back in the 80s. Adults just didn't understand or care what was wrong with kids. What's wrong with you kids? We never did anything like that when we were young. That was a common question in my neighborhood. They just seemed to be pissed off that their children were not as good as they were when they were kids. Although, I'm sure there are many grandparents out there that would tell an entirely different story. After some time, I'm not sure how long, probably because it was over 30 years ago, but I was taken off of the brain-racing Ritalin and given something called Dexedrine. To my surprise, that worked. My childhood was still very much a hot mess, but everything seemed to get into focus. It didn't allow me to get any smarter or more stupid. It just allowed me to see the traffic in my head before I'd be forced to react. I had a moment to pause. The best thing that Dexedrine did for me was to get my parents off my back long enough for me to learn how to focus by myself. And later on, again, the timeline is still really fuzzy, I forcibly took myself off the medication. I believed I knew how to self-focus. And I'm pretty sure that had nothing to do with the fact that I had heard older kids selling their medication for money. I never did that. In fact, it kind of scared me. I mean, I was an angry kid, but not angry enough to become a drug dealer. I just would not take the pills. I never told my parents what I was doing. I don't remember if I flushed the drugs to keep them from discovering my actions or whether I just left them in the bottle. I tend to think I flushed them for a little bit, until I could muster the courage to tell my parents that I was off the sauce. I couldn't have them finding out for themselves. But honestly, I can't remember for the life of me if they had any reaction at all to the news. So where does the song come in, you ask? Well, right here. This song talks about, you broke the boy in me, but you won't break the man. To me, that describes my life. When I think of my childhood and the events within it, I stiffen up and think of this song. I think, well, my parents tried to break me, but they'll never break the man that I've become. And that's very important. The past will always kick the crap out of you sometimes, but if you let it mold the person you've become, then they've won. And I used to be like that. Whenever I think of my parents or my childhood at all, I'd get rageful. Not mad, but burning red rage. And that thinking honestly kept me safe from them and from other people I believed that would hurt me. I was always proactive as well, so I would assume that people were trying to find a way to screw me over. That thinking kept me safe and secure, but it also left me alone and protected. But alone is still pretty shitty. I hadn't yet grown into the man that I wanted to become. In fact, back then, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to change. Now, I don't remember a single incident that changed my stinking thinking. But around the time I met my wife, I had started to soften. I became aware that, well, maybe all people weren't out to get me. They were too busy being self-absorbed to bother with a loser like me. So, slowly, I began to change my way of thinking. I would look at strangers with indifference, instead of trying to figure out how I can screw them before they screw me. To be quite honest, that new way of thinking was much easier than I ever imagined. I wasn't on edge every single second of the day. I wasn't strategizing on people's emotional demise. My brain felt less busy. It was just more relaxing to react instead of attack. And at my age, relaxing is a much better idea. This song was sung by a man named John Parr. I'd never heard anything else he had done. Apparently, he created and performed the theme song for Three Men and a Baby and the movie The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The song St. Elmo's Fire was so popular that he was even nominated for a Grammy for it, back when musical awards were an important thing in a musician's career. He wrote the song in honor of a wheelchair athlete named Rick Hansen. Rick Hansen is a Canadian athlete who didn't allow a spinal cord injury due to a truck accident slow down his ambition. After his accident, he became inspired by Terry Fox's Marathon of Hope that brought attention to people with cancer and cancer research. Rick decided to do something similar. He started the Man in Motion tour. He traveled in his wheelchair for 26 months straight. He went around the world to bring some much-needed attention to spinal cord research. He traveled up mountains and through cities, accumulating a total of 40,075 kilometers across 4 continents and 34 countries. Lately, he founded and runs the Rick Hansen Foundation, a foundation to help buildings in Canada, all the buildings in Canada, become wheelchair accessible. And John Parr? Well, he still tours and makes music. After taking more of a backstage role in music production for about 10 years, John returned to the music scene when a song called John Parr vs. Tommyknockers' New Horizon became popular in 2006. Since then, he's opened for Bryan Adams and sang with bands like Journey and Richard Marx. The one thing that seems consistent in John Parr's life is his need to help others. Besides the St. Elmo's Fire Man in Motion song, he has helped raise money for prostate cancer on ESPN's Sports Nation. He also helped raise money for the military charity Help for Heroes. He always seems willing to help to sing for charity. That's the kind of man I wanted to be. From a difficult beginning, I will rise up and be someone I can be proud of, that others won't shy away from. I really like this song's message of perseverance and determination. I really like John Parr's charitable acts that I honestly knew nothing about until I was researching this story. An amazing song from a real charitable guy. And that's something we can all strive to be. Never let the past define you. The past is just that, the past. Learn from it, but leave it back there. I try not to look backwards, because when I do, I just end up falling on my face. Look forward, towards the future, whatever it may bring. If you see it coming, you'll be ready for it. If you're looking backwards, you're going to get creamed. Thanks for listening to another story that fell out of my head. Let me know what you think about this story or anything else in the comments below. And remember, I still have merch for sale. Check it out if you like my content. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.